Hey everyone! I haven't done a video on a favorite movie in a while, so I thought today I'd take a look back at a movie I've loved since I was a wee thing, Disney's Sleeping Beauty. I'm sure most people are familiar with the 1959 animated classic, but for those of you who may not be, or who need a reminder, here's the story. King Stefan and his queen have long desired a child. At last, a little girl is born who they name Aurora. They throw an enormous celebration in honor of the new princess, inviting guests from all over, including 3 good fairies. These fairies bestow gifts on the baby, the gift of beauty, the gift of song. I know, not the most practical of gifts. But before the 3rd fairy can give her gift, an uninvited guest crashes the party. Maleficent, a powerful, dark fairy who puts a curse on the child that on her 16th birthday she'll prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die. Maleficent disappears in a burst of green flame, leaving the king and queen heartbroken. But while the curse cannot be lifted, it can be softened. The 3rd fairy changes death to sleep, a long sleep that will last until the curse is lifted by true love's kiss. Stefan then has all the spinning wheels in the kingdom destroyed, but to ensure the princess's safety, the 3 good fairies disguise themselves as peasants and take Aurora away to a cottage deep in the woods, renaming her Briar Rose and keeping her true identity a secret. Unfortunately, their best efforts to keep her away from Maleficent are all for naught, and the curse comes true. It's up to the fairies, and Prince Philip, who met and fell in love with Rose in the woods, to save Aurora by defeating Maleficent in a final epic battle of good versus evil. I don't know how old I was when I first saw this movie. I was young, but not super young, maybe 8 or 9. I know I'd seen other Disney films at that point before this one joined our tape collection, but it didn't take long for it to become my #1 favorite animated movie, tied with The Lion King, and it's been a favorite ever since. It's a combination of things: the music, the characters, the design. I've shared before that when I was little, I was a classical and romantic music junkie, and that Tchaikovsky was and is my favorite composer. I just love the music of tortured, intensely emotional Russian guys. So I guess it should come as no surprise that nerdy little me immediately took to this movie, which heavily features music adapted from Tchaikovsky's Sleeping Beauty ballet. Actually, I'm not sure which came first. Did I love the movie because of Tchaikovsky, or did I become a Tchaikovsky fan partly because of the movie? In order to do this review properly, and just because I wanted to see it again, I rewatched the movie, and I appreciated the richness and the harmonies in the music even more than I used to. Either it's because my ears are more discerning now, or I have a greater understanding of music than I did when I was little, or it's because for the first time in my life I watched it on DVD and with headphones, so I was able to hear everything much better. If we're being honest here, though, I wasn't always the most appreciative kid. I would get impatient sometimes to get to the good stuff, so I would fast forward through some of what I considered the boring parts. Like when the fairies give their gifts, I wanted to skip past all the singing and the artsy images, which is absurd. Those parts are so short, and the artwork is pretty, and I'd want to skip through the magic montage in the cottage, and definitely fast forward through the scene where the fairies put the kingdom into a deep sleep. I feel kind of sheepish admitting that, yeah, this was my favorite movie. Actually, I always skipped all these parts. But I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one who fast-forwarded through scenes of their favorite movie when they were little, right? You want to get to the good stuff. And a lot of the good stuff has to do with my 2 favorite characters, Maleficent and Prince Philip. I had a massive crush on Philip. You can have your bland Erics and Aladdins. Philip was the one for me, with his smart red cape and pointy hat, the funny, passive-aggressive friendship he has with his horse, his playful relationship with his father, King Hubert, another great character. And oh my goodness, a handsome stranger you meet in a picturesque wood who finishes your song and dances with you, who wants to marry you so much he'd be willing to give up his claim to the throne, who takes on a literal dragon to save you? How romantic did that seem? And his voice! Philip is charmingly voiced by Bill Shirley, who aside from this is most known for dubbing Jeremy Brett's singing for the role of Freddie Eynsford Hill in 1964's My Fair Lady. You should have seen my face when I found out the guy who sings Once Upon a Dream is the same guy who sings On the Street Where You Live. What a treat. All that said, it's when Maleficent shows up that things really take off. She's awesome, best Disney villain ever, so popular that when Disney decided it had to make live-action remakes of all its classic animated films, they renamed their Sleeping Beauty remake after her. But we're not talking about that movie, which makes me make this face. Maleficent is voiced by Eleanor Audley, who also lent her talents to 1950s Cinderella, playing the wicked stepmother. I love her cool, cultured delivery of Maleficent's witty, sarcastic lines. Although I was a chicken who was scared of pretty much everyone and everything on screen, and Maleficent, with those horns and the glowing yellow eyes, was no exception, I still thought she was great. Loved her cloak, loved all the bright green that surrounded her, loved her evil laugh and her sense of humor, like in this scene where her derpy hench-goblins are assuring her that they searched every cradle, and she says to her crow,
"All these years they've been looking for a baby."
I loved that line. And she really relishes what she does. Take the moment when she maliciously pays a visit to Philip in the dungeon to taunt him with her promise that in 100 years she'll let him go and he can be reunited with his beautiful princess. But lest you come away thinking that this is a dark, dark fairy tale, there is a lot of humor as well. One silly scene that I always enjoyed is the one in which the two kings, who are best buds for life, keep on toasting each other, and then they argue, and then they toast each other again, and then they argue, almost coming to blows, with Hubert trying to stab Stefan with a dead fish, all while the court servant gets drunk and falls asleep under the table. Yeah, it's a kid's movie. And Maleficent's villainy is nicely offset with the whimsical fairies. Flora, the leader, who's arguably the most sensible one, except that sometimes she's forgetful and a shade too optimistic. Fauna, my favorite of the three. She seems ditzy and dangerously naive, but she's sweet, affectionate, unintentionally funny, and occasionally profound. And Merryweather is the rebel, the feisty one, but also the realist, the one who changes the curse, and, don't tell Flora, probably the smartest of the three. These three might be a bit bumbly, but I feel like that's only because they're so out of place. They selflessly give up their magic for 16 years to raise a baby, even though they're completely clueless about child rearing and just, acting like normal people. It's really a wonder that Aurora survives. But they have the best of intentions and come to love Rose as their own daughter, and she loves them. Oh, I always feel so sad for the king, and especially the queen. Here they've been wanting a baby for all these years, and they finally have her, but such a little while goes by before her life is cursed and she's taken away from them. They can't even enjoy her babyhood. All those years, this poor woman has had only a few precious memories of an infant to hold on to. Think of all those firsts she missed. First smile, first steps, first words. It's really depressing if you think about it, but I think that makes the moment when Aurora comes back and is reunited with her parents and rushes into her mother's embrace even sweeter. Admittedly, this Disney princess doesn't really get to do much. She's a baby for one part of the story and asleep for another. But in the screen time that she does get, she shows herself to be an incredibly pleasant, winsome, good-humored person. That, coupled with her graceful beauty and Mary Costa's lovely voice, makes her very easy to like. And the fact that in one day she finds love and loses it, learns that she's not who she believed she was, and has to leave her home for a kingdom full of strangers, and then she gets her autonomy stripped away as she's hypnotized by Maleficent and drawn to the spinning wheel, well, it's a long, difficult day, and you don't need these pitiful images to make you feel sorry for the poor girl. In terms of animation, the movie's not quite on par with the big classics of the Disney Renaissance. It's a little dated, and some of it has a flatness to it, but if the animation at times is kind of basic, it makes the wow moments stand out even more. Things like the fluidity of Maleficent's cloak and the volume in Aurora's hair are so gorgeous. And the action scenes are great. That final sequence with Philip and the dragon, fantastic coloring and animation, and good scary stuff for the little kids, because every Disney movie has to have something terrifying in it. I know this movie's been parodied and imitated and remade and criticized for promoting whatever, giving girls false information about how they should interact with men in the real world, I don't know. None of these things has managed to take away my affection for it. Other Disney films may come and go, but the classics still stand, and for me, this is one of the best and most iconic. I hope you enjoyed this review of Sleeping Beauty. It was fun to make, as it always is when I cover a favorite movie. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below if you like. I'm always interested to hear what my viewers have to say, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.